Since the dawn of time, humanity has looked upward and asked the same haunting question. Are we alone? From the fires of ancient shamans to the temples of Egypt, to the observatories perched high on mountaintops, humans have searched the skies not just for light, but for meaning. Every myth, every legend of visitors from the stars, every modern science fiction film is really asking the same thing. What happens if one day someone answers back? What most of us don't realize is that if that day ever comes, it won't just be an astronomical discovery. It won't only belong to the realm of science. It will shake the very foundation of who we are. It will be an ethical earthquake, a political storm, and perhaps the greatest test not of their civilization, but of ours. Think about it. First contact with extraterrestrial intelligence is not like discovering a new continent or a lost tribe. It is not even like finding a new species on Earth. It is an encounter with something that might be millions of years older, wiser, and far more powerful than us. And the way we react, our first words, our first decisions, will define humanity in their eyes and perhaps more importantly, in our own. Would we celebrate, united under a banner of humanity? Or would nations bicker and compete, each one desperate to control the greatest discovery of all time? Would our religions crumble under the weight of new knowledge or evolve into something greater? Would we extend a hand in peace or load our weapons just in case? The truth is, first contact is not a single moment. It is a process, a cascade of choices, dilemmas, and conflicts that ripple through every layer of society. From the halls of government to the pulpit, to your own living room, the discovery of extraterrestrial life will not just tell us who they are. It will reveal more than anything else who we are. And so the journey begins, not through the stars, but through ourselves. We must ask the questions our leaders may one day face. Who owns the first signal? Who speaks for Earth? Should we even reply? And perhaps the hardest question of all, can humanity survive its own fears long enough to meet another civilization with dignity? This is not science fiction. It is the greatest ethical and political dilemma humanity has ever prepared for. And the story of first contact begins now. It might begin quietly, not with flashing lights in the sky or a ship hovering over a city, but with a sound so faint it could easily be dismissed as background noise. Somewhere in the desert, a lonely radio telescope scans the heavens. A pattern appears in the static, steady, deliberate repeating. At first, the technician on duty frowns, assuming it's interference from a satellite or the echo of a passing aircraft. But as the hours pass, the signal remains too precise, too consistent, too structured. Within days, teams of astronomers around the world are alerted. Data pours in. The patterns are checked against every known natural phenomenon. Pulsars, quasars, cosmic radiation. None match. Someone whispers the word no scientist dares to say aloud until they're absolutely certain. Intelligence. And suddenly, the most extraordinary discovery in human history belongs to a handful of people, huddled over computer screens in the middle of the night. But before celebrations begin, another thought strikes like lightning. Who owns this discovery? Is it the university where the telescope is based? The government that funded the satellite? The international consortium that built the equipment? Or does the discovery of another intelligence, something beyond Earth, belong to all of humanity, every nation, every person, no matter their origin? This is the first ethical crisis of first contact, ownership. In a world where patents, borders, and corporations divide nearly every resource, can the first whisper from another world really remain common property? Or will someone try to claim it? The politics of discovery unfold almost instantly. Governments are notified. Phone calls are made behind closed doors. Within hours, the handful of scientists who first detected the signal may find themselves silenced by non-disclosure agreements. Information is locked down. The official line becomes classified. And yet, in a world connected by the internet, secrets rarely stay hidden for long. Rumors spread. Leaks appear in obscure forums. Journalists begin asking questions. The public senses that something extraordinary is happening. A whisper builds into a roar. We are not alone. But how do you tell 8 billion people that the universe has answered back? Do you make the announcement live on television? Do you prepare months in advance for a carefully crafted statement? Do you even dare to announce it at all before you know what the message means? Every choice carries weight. Too soon and panic might ripple through the streets. Too late, and people may accuse leaders of betrayal. To disclose everything risks chaos. To disclose nothing risks mistrust, and all of it unfolds before a single word of the alien message has even been translated. The moment of discovery is not a single event. It is a chain reaction, a political and ethical earthquake. One faint signal from the stars sets governments scrambling, scientists divided, and societies holding their breath. Because at the heart of it lies a truth more terrifying than the signal itself. The universe may not be silent, and the world we thought we knew may already be over. History tells us one undeniable truth. When the extraordinary collides with the unknown, governments reach first for secrecy. Imagine the signal has been confirmed. The scientists know. The agencies know. Somewhere in the shadows of power, leaders are briefed in hushed tones. We are not alone. The first instinct, more often than not, is not to celebrate but to contain. Would they tell the public right away? Or would they argue that humanity isn't ready? That panic would spread, markets would collapse, religions would fracture. To the men and women in power, silence may seem safer than honesty. In their eyes, secrecy is protection. But is it protection or control? Every hour the truth is withheld, the ethical dilemma grows sharper. Does a government have the right to decide when humanity learns of such a discovery? Can a small circle of officials claim authority over something that belongs to all of us? The knowledge that we are not alone in the cosmos. To many, such secrecy would feel like theft, the stealing of humanity's greatest moment. But the stakes are higher than they first appear. Imagine one nation discovering the signal first. Would it rush to lock down the data to ensure its rivals remain in the dark? Would it hoard the knowledge in hopes of gaining an advantage? Or would it reach out to allies, sharing the burden and the glory? History's record of competition suggests the former. And yet, in a world connected by instant communication, secrecy is fragile. Whistleblowers might leak the signal to the press. Hackers could uncover hidden transmissions. A single careless message on social media could ignite global speculation. And once the news escapes, no government on Earth could control it. But what happens if the truth comes out not through careful explanation, but through rumor and conspiracy? If the public learns of aliens not from their leaders, but from a leak, a rumor, or a blurry document, trust collapses. People will not just question the signal, they will question everything else. Secrecy may seem like safety, but it carries its own dangers. Disclosure, too, is perilous. Announce it too soon and the world may plunge into panic. Stock markets crashing, people abandoning their routines, some embracing wild cults, while others retreat into fear. Announce it too late and humanity may turn on its own leaders, enraged that such a revelation was hidden. This is the razor's edge of first contact. Between secrecy and disclosure lies no safe ground. The politics of information, the ethics of truth, may determine whether first contact begins as humanity's greatest triumph, or as the seed of its deepest distrust. And so, before the alien message is even understood, before a single word is translated, Earth already faces its first test. Not a test of technology, but of honesty. Not of science, but of trust. The discovery is confirmed. The signal is undeniable. And now the question humanity has never truly prepared for emerges. Who speaks for Earth? On one level, the answer seems simple. Surely no single nation can claim the right to reply on behalf of billions. Ethically, the message should come from humanity as a whole. Politically, however, the situation is far messier. For in a world of rival superpowers, deep divisions and competing interests, no one voice is ever agreed upon. Would the United States, with its space agencies and global influence, insist it has the authority to answer first? Would China, a rising space power, demand its own role? Would Russia, India, or the European Union fight for a seat at the table? Or would the world turn to the United Nations, that fragile gathering of nations often criticized for its inefficiency, and ask it to carry humanity's voice to the stars? The reality is sobering. Every choice carries risk. If one country replies, others may see it as a betrayal, an attempt to seize control of the future. If only powerful nations decide, smaller countries may feel silenced, their people excluded from history's greatest moment. And if the United Nations attempts to answer, its slow machinery may falter under pressure, unable to act swiftly enough when the universe is waiting. Imagine the scene: diplomats arguing in crowded chambers, each nation insisting on its right to be heard. Scientists begging for unity while politicians stall. Outside the halls of power, billions of ordinary people wait in suspense. A decision that could define humanity for eternity is being debated like a trade deal, subject to the same bickering, pride, and political maneuvering. But the dilemma runs deeper than politics. It is also symbolic. Whoever speaks for Earth is not just sending words across the stars. They are defining humanity itself. What tone should we strike? A humble greeting? A declaration of our technological achievements? A warning? Should we speak with caution, with pride, with fear, or with hope? Each choice paints a portrait of who we are. And here lies the paradox. To wait too long risks missing the opportunity, but to act too quickly risks fracturing the fragile bonds that hold our species together. If the first message comes from only one nation, we risk creating an Earth divided in the eyes of the cosmos. If no one speaks at all, the silence may be seen as disorganization, or worse, weakness. The truth is unsettling. Humanity is not prepared for a single voice. We are fractured by ideology, language, religion, and ambition. And yet in that moment, the universe demands we answer as one. For perhaps the first time in history, the world will be forced to ask itself not what nation are you from, but what species are you? The question of who speaks for Earth is more than political. It is existential. It will not only determine the words that reach the stars, it will define what it means to be human in a universe suddenly alive with possibility. Even if humanity manages to agree on who speaks for Earth, another question looms, one even more profound and far more dangerous. Should we speak at all? For decades, scientists have debated whether responding to a signal or deliberately broadcasting our existence is wise. To some, the answer is obvious: of course we should. Reaching out is the very spirit of exploration, the next chapter in the human story. If intelligence has reached across the stars to call out, then surely it is only natural, only ethical that we answer. To remain silent, they argue, would be to deny our place in the cosmos. But to others, silence is not cowardice, it is survival. They warn that revealing our location is like shouting into a dark forest, not knowing what predators may lurk in the shadows. We assume contact would be friendly or at least curious. But history, they say, tells a harsher tale. When technologically advanced civilizations have encountered less advanced ones here on Earth, the results have often been tragic. Domination, exploitation, even extinction. Why should we expect the stars to be any kinder? This is the ethical paradox of contact. On one side lies the moral duty of curiosity, of connection, of stepping beyond fear to embrace the unknown. On the other lies the moral duty of protection, of caution, of safeguarding humanity from dangers it cannot yet comprehend. Imagine the weight of such a decision. To send a message into the cosmos is irreversible. Once our voice leaves Earth, it cannot be taken back. It travels outward forever, declaring to any who listen that humanity exists, fragile and vulnerable, orbiting a small star in a quiet arm of the Milky Way. If the wrong civilization hears it, the consequences could be catastrophic, not just for one nation, but for every human being alive and for generations yet unborn. And yet, to remain silent has its own consequences. Silence may protect us, but it also imprisons us. It leaves us isolated, waiting endlessly for others to find us. It denies us the chance to grow, to learn, to evolve through dialogue with something greater than ourselves. Some argue that refusing to respond would be an act of fear, a betrayal of the human spirit of discovery. The dilemma is more than scientific. It is ethical. Do we have the right to risk the survival of billions for the chance of connection? Or do we have the right to deny billions the opportunity to step into a larger universe, choosing instead to hide in silence? And consider this: who gets to decide? Scientists? Politicians? Religious leaders? Ordinary citizens? The ethics of first contact cannot be left to a handful of voices. It is a question that belongs to all of humanity. But can 8 billion people truly make such a decision together? Or will history's greatest choice be made behind closed doors by a few, without the consent of the many? In the end, the ethics of contact itself may be the hardest dilemma humanity has ever faced. For in the stars lies both the possibility of our greatest beginning and the risk of our final end. If the discovery of extraterrestrial intelligence would shake politics and science, it would strike even deeper into the realms of faith, culture, and meaning itself. For thousands of years, humanity has asked not only whether we are alone, but also what place we hold in the universe. Every culture has built myths and stories to answer that question. Every religion has wrestled with humanity's connection to something greater. First contact would bring those answers crashing into reality. For some, the confirmation of alien life would be a profound affirmation. The vastness of creation, once only imagined in scripture or myth, would be visible in living proof. Believers might see the arrival of extraterrestrial intelligence not as a threat, but as a testament that life truly does flourish across the cosmos, guided by forces beyond our comprehension. A new chapter of faith could emerge, one that embraces the universe as even more wondrous, even more divine than ever imagined. But for others, it would be a crisis. If humanity is not unique, if we are not the sole bearers of intelligence, then what does that mean for doctrines that have always placed us at the center of existence? If alien beings possess knowledge of creation, or even their own spiritual beliefs, what happens when those stories collide with ours? Would ancient faiths fracture under the weight of cosmic truth, or adapt and evolve into something new? Culture, too, would tremble. For centuries, humanity's art, literature, and philosophy have been shaped by our solitude. Every song about the stars, every painting of heaven, every poem about the night sky carries within it the assumption that the universe is silent. First contact would end that silence forever. Our music, our stories, our collective imagination would expand in directions we can scarcely predict. The canvas of culture would stretch from Earth to the stars, yet the shock would not be evenly felt. Some societies might welcome this expansion, embracing a cosmic identity. Others might recoil, clinging to tradition with greater intensity than ever before. Fear of the unknown could harden into fundamentalism, nationalism, or isolationism. The human spirit, confronted with the immensity of other minds, might soar with wonder or collapse under fear. And what of the individuals? Picture a child in a remote village, learning for the first time that humanity is not alone. Picture a priest, a monk, or a rabbi standing before their congregation, struggling to find words that reconcile ancient texts with the reality of alien life. Picture the artist, inspired beyond measure, painting visions of contact that stir humanity's soul. In living rooms, in classrooms, in temples and mosques and churches, the question of who we are would echo louder than ever. For in truth, the arrival of extraterrestrial intelligence does not diminish humanity. It does not erase our stories or our spirit. Instead, it challenges us to grow, to see ourselves not as rulers of Earth, but as one small voice in a vast cosmic choir. To ask not only what we believe, but how those beliefs can guide us when the universe finally answers back. First contact would not only reshape our science and our politics, it would reshape our spirit. And in that reshaping lies perhaps the greatest test of all, whether we will fracture under the weight of change, or rise to meet it with humility, imagination, and awe. No matter how wondrous the idea of first contact may seem, we cannot escape the shadow of fear. History has taught humanity that encounters between unequal powers are rarely gentle. When explorers arrived in new lands, it was often not curiosity that followed, but conquest. And so the question presses on us with an unrelenting weight. What if they are not friendly? Fear of the unknown runs deep in the human psyche. It is both our greatest survival tool and our greatest curse. Faced with a signal from the stars, governments around the world would not only ask what do they want, but also how do we protect ourselves if they come. Even if the aliens never set foot on Earth, the sheer knowledge of their existence could spark an arms race. Nations might scramble to develop new weapons, new defenses, even militarize space in anticipation of an enemy that may not exist. The irony is cruel. The act of preparing for danger may itself create the very danger we fear. Suspicion between nations could rise, alliances could strain, and paranoia could push humanity closer to conflict with itself rather than with the stars. The fear of them could quickly become the fear of each other. And consider this, even the most peaceful extraterrestrial contact could trigger panic among ordinary people. A single rumor, amplified by social media, could spark riots or mass hysteria. Markets might collapse. Religions could fracture. Militaries might be put on alert. In a world already anxious and divided, the shock of the unknown could ignite fires that no government can fully control. This fear is not irrational. If an advanced civilization truly wished us harm, our chances of survival would be slim. Their technology could be centuries, perhaps millennia ahead of ours. Our weapons, our defenses, our strategies would be meaningless against their power. The survival instinct tells us to prepare, to defend, to mistrust. But ethics tells us another story. Can a species ever build trust if its first instinct is to reach for the sword? Yet survival is not only about weapons, it is also about resilience. Humanity's greatest strength has never been raw power, it has been adaptability. We have survived plagues, wars, disasters, and near-extinction events. We have risen from ashes before. The question is whether we can survive our own fear. Imagine two futures. In one, humanity reacts to first contact with paranoia, building walls of silence and weapons of war. In another, humanity reacts with measured caution, but also with courage, preparing wisely without letting fear rule. Which path we choose will define whether first contact becomes a story of survival through unity or of destruction born from suspicion. For in the end, the real threat may not be extraterrestrials at all. The real threat may be us, our fear, our mistrust, our inability to see beyond the shadows, and perhaps that is the greatest survival test of all. When humanity first glimpses proof of extraterrestrial life, the discovery will not be confined to laboratories or government offices. It will spill instantly into the digital bloodstream of the 21st century. For in our world, information does not move slowly. It races, it spreads, it mutates, and in the age of social media, the story of first contact will belong not just to leaders and scientists, but to everyone. Imagine the moment. A faint signal from a distant star is confirmed. Within minutes, headlines erupt across the globe. Screens flicker with breaking news alerts. Social media platforms overflow with speculation, memes, and conspiracy theories. Hashtags trend worldwide. Within hours, billions of people, each with a phone in their hand, are weighing in on the greatest event in history. And here lies the power and the danger of technology. For never before has humanity experienced a discovery of such magnitude in such a connected age. The internet amplifies both truth and falsehood. A single authentic image of alien contact could inspire wonder. But a single faked video, a manipulated leak, or a well-crafted rumor could ignite chaos. People may not wait for verification. They may not want facts. They may want stories, and stories spread faster than truth. Governments too will struggle with the media storm. Should they release all information openly, risking panic but ensuring transparency? Or should they control the narrative, filtering details in the name of public stability? Either choice carries enormous consequences. Too much secrecy and mistrust grows. Too much openness and hysteria may spiral out of control. In this way, the battle over first contact may not be fought in space, but on screens through words, images, and perception. Technology also gives rise to another dilemma, one of power. In a world where anyone can broadcast to millions, who has the right to frame the story of first contact? A president? A scientist? A religious leader? Or perhaps a lone whistleblower who uploads a document proving the truth? The democratization of information ensures that no single authority can fully control the narrative. Humanity's first steps toward the stars may be shaped as much by viral videos and trending hashtags as by official statements. And yet, technology also offers hope. It can unify us across borders, allowing people in distant lands to share in the same moment of wonder. It can educate, inspire, and create global conversations unlike any in history. If used wisely, our digital networks could help humanity respond to first contact, not as fragmented nations, but as one interconnected species. But the line between connection and chaos is razor thin. For every voice seeking unity, another may seek division. For every fact, a dozen falsehoods may compete for attention. First contact may show us not only what lies beyond Earth, but also the true nature of our own digital age. In the end, technology and media are not just tools. They are mirrors. They will reflect our fears, our hopes, our divisions, and our dreams. And in that reflection, the world may discover whether it is truly ready to face the universe, or whether it is still too entangled in its own web of noise. Beyond politics, faith, and fear, there is another force that quietly shapes the destiny of nations: economics. First contact, whether through a signal from the stars or the arrival of visitors themselves, would not only challenge our philosophies, it would disrupt the global economy in ways we can barely imagine. The first shock would be psychological. Markets are built on confidence, on the belief that tomorrow will be predictable enough to invest in. But what happens when the world awakens to the reality that humanity is no longer alone? Some investors would panic. Stock markets might tumble as fear spreads through trading floors. Gold, oil, and other safe haven assets could skyrocket in value as uncertainty grips the world. Entire industries, tourism, real estate, even luxury goods, could falter overnight as humanity turns its gaze upward, distracted by the enormity of the unknown. But while some economies collapse, others may soar. Space industries would experience an unprecedented boom. Companies building rockets, satellites, and communication technologies would become the new giants of the global marketplace. Funding for scientific research could skyrocket as nations pour resources into understanding who or what is out there. The space race of the Cold War would look small in comparison to the trillion-dollar industries that might emerge from humanity's attempt to prepare for contact. And yet, deeper dilemmas await. If aliens share knowledge of medicine, energy, or technology, who owns it? If they offer a cure for disease, does it belong to all humanity, or only to the first nation that makes contact? If they reveal an energy source that renders oil obsolete, entire economies built on fossil fuels could collapse, destabilizing nations and sparking unrest. The wealth of some countries could vanish overnight, while others rise to unprecedented power. Even without alien gifts, the mere possibility of new technology could destabilize the balance of power. Rumors of advanced knowledge could spark bidding wars, espionage, and black markets. Corporations and governments alike might race to control even fragments of information, hoarding what they can, fearing that rivals will gain an edge. But there is another side to this economic story, one of opportunity. First contact could inspire a renaissance of innovation. Entirely new industries could emerge, from interstellar communication systems to extraterrestrial cultural exchange. Universities might thrive. Artists and educators could find themselves at the center of a cultural economic revolution. As humanity's imagination expands into realms once reserved for science fiction. Still, the central question remains: will the economics of the unknown drive humanity toward unity or deepen division? Will resources be shared in the spirit of global cooperation, ensuring that every nation benefits from the next chapter of our species? Or will greed and competition turn first contact into another arena of inequality, where only the powerful profit from the stars? For in the end, money is not just currency. It is influence, it is survival, it is trust. And the arrival of extraterrestrial intelligence will force humanity to decide whether the future of our economy is built on competition or on a collective leap into the unknown. When we imagine first contact, it is tempting to think of it as a single moment, the crackle of a radio signal, the descent of a starship, the first exchange of words. But the truth is far more complex. First contact is not one event. It is a chain of choices, a mirror held up to humanity that will reflect not only who they are, but who we are. And this mirror will not flatter us. It will expose our divisions, our fears, our ambitions. It will reveal the fault lines of our politics, the fragility of our faith, the chaos of our media, and the greed of our economies. It will test our ability to cooperate, to trust, to resist the temptations of fear and power. In short, it will reveal whether humanity is ready to join a universe that may be far older and far wiser than we are. But here is the paradox. Extraterrestrials may not judge us at all. They may not care about our conflicts, our pride, or our mistakes. The real judgment will come from within. The true question of first contact is not what will they do with us, but what will we do with ourselves? Will we stumble into chaos, fractured by mistrust and rivalry, each nation scrambling for advantage while the greatest moment in history slips through our fingers? Will we allow fear to rule us, silencing our better angels in favor of suspicion, secrecy, and paranoia? Will we destroy the opportunity before it ever truly begins? Or will we rise? Will we learn to see beyond the narrow boundaries of nation, language, and creed, and recognize ourselves for what we truly are? One species, bound to one fragile planet, standing at the threshold of a cosmic horizon. Will we answer with humility, with courage, with curiosity, not as fractured tribes, but as humanity? The choice is ours, for first contact is not simply about them. It is about us. It is about whether we are capable of transcending our past long enough to seize our future. It is about whether we will cling to the familiar walls of fear or step boldly into the unknown. And so the question echoes, What does first contact look like, ethically and politically? The answer is not fixed. It is not written in the stars. It lies in the decisions we make today, in our politics, in our values, in the way we treat one another even before the stars ever call. Perhaps in the end, first contact will not be about the aliens at all. Perhaps it will be humanity's final test, the moment we discover whether we are ready to meet another intelligence, or whether the true alien is the part of ourselves we have yet to overcome. The universe may be watching, or it may not, but the future is waiting. And the future we choose will define us forever.